So let me go ahead and break this video down into pretty much all the different things that is going to expand this class even more for you. Number one, we're going to talk about the exotics that are the best with this class, and pretty much it just comes down to one. You probably already see the gameplay of it. And number two, we're also going to talk about throwing hammers themselves. Now, a lot of people don't cross-map hammers. I believe in cross-mapping hammers. I think that cross-mapping hammers takes people by surprise. And when I say cross-mapping hammers, you don't want to go out of your way to pretty much throw a map across the map. But you definitely want to get used to just slinging hammers. And that can be done anywhere, you know, like just practicing in PvE, in a patrol event. Just get used to throwing a hammer and getting used to the arc of the hammer. And number three, I want to talk about how to come out of your sun charge and popping your hammer. So, you know, there's different ways to pop your hammers. Of course, you don't necessarily have to do that, but it's just kind of a method in order to kind of get your hammer out a little quicker and get yourself in front of the enemy faster before they can collect themselves. So let's talk about the exotic real quick. As you see right here, I'm using Dune Marchers. Dune Marchers, without a doubt, is the best exotic for hammers. See, the biggest problem with hammers, especially when you pop it, is majority of people like to run. They like to get away from you. And so I like to use an exotic that is able to chase them down as quickly as possible. There's a reason why I love Twilight Garrison and Destiny 1 on hammer. Hammer and Twilight Garrison, those two together, was just so nasty because it gave me the ability to fucking chase them down from anywhere in the map by Titan scanning coming out of Twilight. Now, Dune Marchers also has a number of things there. You know, it's got the AoE damage that it does whenever you hit a melee up on someone. That also goes kind of in combination with the sun charge. So, you know, you get a little bit extra juice there whenever you hit someone. But Dune Marchers, all in all, it's just the best exotic in terms of closing the gap to allow you to get that hammer off and hit someone. Now, let's talk about throwing the hammer. Let's talk about arching, because that is something that was killer back in D1. I would say D1 hammers arched a lot more. D2 hammers are a little more linear. They're a little more straightforward. They kind of get to where you're throwing at, wherever your sights are at. Now, you will have to, especially in those situations where the enemy is running to, you may have to arch. Now, let me go and show you something. You see in some of these clips that I like to slide and throw the hammer. Now, sliding and throwing the hammer, that's a weird thing because you're already doing a lot. The reason why I like Dune Marchers, especially with this, is sliding is like, it already has like something like knee pads on Dune Marchers, so you already slide pretty far. But sliding seems to stabilize your throw whenever you get ready to throw. See, a lot of times when I see people throw a hammer, their screen shakes so much because they're trying to run, they're trying to aim, and they're honestly in this situation where they jerk their joystick or their mouse as soon as they throw the hammer, which makes their hammer just spin out of control and go where they don't want it to go. Sliding, for some reason, it almost like it, and I don't know if it just throws your sensitivity down a little low, if it just levels everything out, but for me, when I slide and I throw the hammer, that honestly keeps everything stable and it keeps my field of view extremely linear to whatever I'm looking at. So normally what I always like to do whenever I slide is you don't want to slide away from the target when you're throwing at it. So if the target is running north, you wouldn't slide east expecting yourself to throw the hammer north. No, what you would want to do is literally just slide straight at them, and pretty much wherever your feet is, as soon as you come out of it to throw your hammer is going to go there. And so that's just kind of a trick that I've been using since Destiny 1, guys. But essentially, you just want to make sure wherever your toes are pointing is wherever your hammer is going to go. And it'll definitely take a minute to perfect that, guys. It's just something that I felt like really transitioned well to Destiny 2 from Destiny 1, because essentially it's the same thing. I used to slide all the time when throwing hammers in Destiny 1. Now let me talk about the sun charge to hammer combination. So essentially, sun charge is the equivalent of shoulder charge on the hammer class. But the thing about it is what I like to do whenever I'm coming around a corner. Now, you don't want to do this all the time. but there's sometimes whenever it's effective just for getting your hammer out and still being on the move. So you know, when you've got the enemies, as soon as they hear you pop the hammer, normally they jet. If your feet are on the ground and you're still, what happens is, especially even if you're in a dead sprint, you're running, and then you pop your hammer, you're just gonna literally just be standing on the ground and popping your hammer. It's gonna stall you, it's gonna stop you. It's kind of like back in the day when you used to pop Goldie or Blade or something like that. You would want to slide and pop your super, and because you will continue, especially with something like knee pads on Blade back in the day, you would want to continue to slide and be popping your Blade at the same time. That way, as soon as you have your super available to kill people, you would be upon them and you could start killing them. Same method here with hammers, guys. You sun charge, and as soon as you come out of your sun charge or in the process of sun charging, you are popping your hammer. Now, this will allow you to keep and maintain that forward acceleration, and you'll be there in front of your enemies. Now, this is not always the best thing to do, because sometimes it gets straight fuck you. Okay, there's sometimes you sun charge out in the open and you pop a hammer, and then there is like enemies all around you, and then they gun you down, and then there's nothing you can do about it. So I mean, you just want to make sure that you pop it more or less on a flank or around a corner versus in the open. That's the only time you really get screwed, is if you try to pop this when you're in the open on people. So guys, that's hammers, man. And if you didn't know, this is the top tree for the Sunbreaker class. I think some might be confused if you've never played this class, but if you see somebody sun charging, they're definitely using the top tree. I would also say that this class, yes, it's not the best class. It's not. It's definitely not. But in terms of just its super, yes, I would take this super against any golden gun, any Nova, any striker, any class, storm, whatever it is. I would take hammers against any of those classes any day of the week, and I shut them down every single weekend consistently. Even though people look at hammers as being a terrible class, I think the super itself is the biggest selling point and the only selling point to this class, and a super that will dominate every other super on the field. All right, guys, well, that's my breakdown for hammers and the best super in the game. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit that like button. Thank you all for coming, guys, and as always, slap that like button like your mama told you right. So let's get closer.